Rawteur, I didn't grow up watching canon movies. Well, not deliberately anyway. Honestly, I didn't even know canon films existed until I started digging for lawsuit stories. And what I found was a studio that felt too chaotic to be real. One minute they're making low budget action movies, the next they're getting sued, investigated by the SEC, and somehow still pushing out 35 films a year. So, how did they rise so fast and crash even faster? Let's start with the knockoff Indiana Jones situation, King Solomon's Mines. On paper, it's based on an 1885 novel. In reality, it looked like a budget Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Canon knew exactly what they were doing. The khakis, the fedora, the ancient traps, the we swear this is totally different marketing. Technically, they didn't copy Indiana Jones, they adapted public domain material, but it was close enough that Paramount and Lucasfilm were paying attention. Still, Canon stayed just far enough inside the legal lines to avoid a full on lawsuit, and that became a pattern. They moved fast. They pre sold international rights before a script was even written. They hyped movies at Cannes with nothing but a poster. If they smelled a trend, they were already filming. That speed kept them one step ahead, at least for a while. But then they got greedy. They started chasing big franchises, big IPs. Enter Superman 4. Quick reminder, if you like hearing about movies and studios that went full throttle into chaos, hit that like button. It helps the channel a ton. Alright, back to Canon. Canon thought they were ready. They weren't. They bought the rights from the Salkinds, who made the first three Superman movies. It was supposed to be a major comeback. Instead, it turned into a disaster. Canon was broke. They cut the budget from 36 million all the way down to 17 million. Some sets got recycled. Effects looked worse than a high school science fair. Even Christopher Reeve was frustrated. DC Comics were furious. Warner Brothers was furious. And when the dust settled, the rights quietly reverted back to the Salkinds. And that's rare. It almost never happens unless someone seriously breaches a contract. Behind the scenes, Canon had burned yet another bridge. And speaking of bridges, by 1987, the Securities and Exchange Commission had gotten involved. Because here's the thing. Canon wasn't just making bad movies, they were making bad numbers. They bragged about sales, record profits, record pre-sales overseas, except a lot of those sales were based on movies that didn't even exist yet. Canon was counting deals that were shaky at best. Sometimes they booked revenue for movies that hadn't even started filming. Wall Street loved it until the cracks started showing. The SEC launched a full-on investigation. They found that since 1984, Canon had been, let's say, creative with the way they reported money. Creative enough to violate federal securities laws. The SEC slapped them with a 39-page civil complaint accusing them of misleading investors, cooking the books, and basically selling a dream that wasn't real. Canon settled, no admission of guilt, but they agreed to a court order that forced them to follow strict accounting rules from then on. And by that point, the damage was done. The stock price collapsed, investors ran for the hills, and Canon's reputation, which was already iffy, was officially radioactive. If you think Canon's only problem was money, let's talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. Oh, and by the way, I put together a free monthly watch list packed with hidden gems, cult classic movies, and a few series. Click here to sign up now. So, Canon got the rights to Texas Chainsaw, and they got the original director, Tobe Hooper. So, what could go wrong? Everything. Canon thought they were getting another straight-up horror movie. Hooper delivered a dark comedy. The studio freaked out. They tried cutting it to get an R rating, but it still came back with an X. They finally just gave up and released it unrated, which, surprise, killed their box office, got them banned in some countries, and torched whatever relationship they had with the original rights holder. After that, no more chainsaw movies for Canon. Another franchise gone. Meanwhile, they were still cranking out movies at a ridiculous pace. Prestige dramas, low budget sci fi, kids' musicals, whatever they thought would sell. And it worked until it didn't. By 1988, they were selling off pieces of their company just to stay alive. Giancarlo Parietti swooped in and bought what was left. And by 1990, Canon was basically dead. It folded into a tangle of bankruptcies and lawsuits. Golan and Globus, the cousins who built the empire, went their separate ways, and Canon became a cautionary tale. They bet big, they moved fast, they played loose with the rules, and for a few wild years, they made it work. They actually launched Chuck Norris into superstardom. They gave us some cult classics. They sold the dream of making movies the Hollywood way, just without the rules. Today, Canon is remembered not just for the movies they made, but the way they made them: fast, cheap, chaotic, and unforgettable. Let me know in the comments which Canon movie you secretly love, even if it's a little rough around the edges. No shame. If Canon taught us anything, it's that you don't need a masterpiece to make a mark. Check out more movies from my movie knockoff series right here.